doctora Paulina Vega Muñoz, médica con enfoque funcional, madre de 2 maravillosos hijos, emprendedora, fundadora y directora del Centro Neocer e hija de uno de los primeros médicos integrativos de Chile. Yo logré una transformación de mi estilo de vida y salud gracias al estudio, experiencia y la búsqueda de herramientas innovadoras, lo cual requirió mucho tiempo y superación de desafíos. He visto cómo las estadísticas sobre bienestar y salud siguen empeorando, y así también cómo la aparición de enfermedades crónicas y la decadencia de la calidad de vida nos dominan cada día más. Mi misión es servir a las personas de todo el mundo, educar, empoderarlas a través de contenido de valor y conversaciones transformacionales que te van a inspirar a aplicar toda esta información en tu vida de manera sencilla. Si buscas bienestar, optimización física y mental, longevidad y rendimiento, este club es para ti. Mereces sentirte como tú deseas y hay que decirlo, nada malo pasa si optimizas tu salud y estilo de vida. Bienvenidos a Wellness Club. Hola, bienvenidas y bienvenidos a otro episodio de este podcast Wellness Club. Hoy nos toca conversación transformacional. Recuerda que vamos a estar intercalando entre coffee breaks conmigo, solamente conmigo, y además conversaciones transformacionales, que son entrevistas a personas, hombres y mujeres, que realmente pueden inspirarnos a lograr el estilo de vida, la salud y el bienestar que deseamos. En esta ocasión les voy a compartir una grabación de una entrevista que hice a una de las mujeres más power y que yo más admiro. La verdad es que nunca voy a olvidar la primera vez que la vi, cuando fui a uno de los congresos del Metabolic Health Summit, varios años atrás, el 2019, y yo la vi en el podio con un vestido rojo apretado, mostrando su gran masa muscular, y yo dije, qué increíble, qué hermosa mujer, super power, y hablaba sobre alimentación baja en carbohidratos en mujeres y en embarazo. Y hablaba sobre alimentación baja en carbohidratos en mujeres y específicamente también en embarazo, lo cual me encantó. Es algo que yo pude también traer como conocimientos a mis pacientes y lo he podido aplicar y ha sido maravilloso, una hermosa experiencia. Esta mujer además es madre de 3 hermosas hijas, tiene una familia increíble, un marido también que la apoya muchísimo y que la admira también y no tiene ninguna vergüenza en decirle eso, me encanta. Así que saludos a Ben y a Jamie desde acá, he podido compartir con ellos también en Chile y son grandes personas. Aquí les presento a esta mujer que además ha escrito su propio libro que se llama Hard to Kill, que está por ahora solo en inglés, esperamos que pronto también en español, Hard to Kill, dura de matar. Y ya pueden ver ahí parte de lo que ella está reflejando en la carátula de este libro. Realmente los invito a que quienes puedan leer en inglés por ahora, lo puedan conseguir, lo lean, se inspiren y ella habla de varios factores de estilo de vida que son claves para el mejor rendimiento físico y mental que puedas tener en tu vida. Además, ella creó The Hard to Kill Academy, que es una plataforma donde también ella comparte contenido de calidad y tiene un podcast. Ella es conocida como Dr. Fit and Fabulous, así que también la pueden seguir ahí. Les voy a dejar toda esa información en el texto de este podcast. Ok, esta es una entrevista entonces que grabamos hace unos meses. Está en inglés. Perdónenme mi inglés, hice lo mejor que pude. Estaba muy nerviosa porque estaba muy emocionada. Y los subtítulos van a estar en español. Por lo tanto, si no entiendes muy bien el inglés al escucharlo, te invito a que veas este podcast en video, tanto en Spotify como en YouTube. Voy a dejarles abajo los links también para poder llegar a ese video en la otra plataforma y espero que disfrutes esta entrevista. Aquí hablamos con Jaime sobre las hormonas, sobre los mitos de las hormonas con respecto a estrategias como por ejemplo dieta cetogénica, ayuno intermitente y muchos otros temas y contenido de calidad. Así que qué mejor que ella, esta mujer power, ginecóloga, que trabaja, estudia y vive lo que es la salud hormonal en las mujeres, que nos pueda enseñar, explicar y aclarar muchos temas sobre cómo nosotras podemos mejorar nuestras estrategias de salud metabólicas para realmente mejorar nuestra vida, vivir más y vivir más felices. Así que disfrutes esta conversación transformacional. Hola, bienvenidos a nuestro canal de YouTube de Neocer Chile. Tengo el honor de tener una gran invitada el día de hoy, la doctora Jaime Seeman, que es una ginecóloga, pero que tiene un enfoque funcional en la salud metabólica y quiero que la conozcan. Viene con muchísima información que nos importa especialmente a las mujeres relacionadas con nuestras hormonas, nuestros hábitos, prevención y terapéutica. Así que bienvenida, welcome Dr. Seeman.
Thank you for having me.
So first, let's start with telling people what you do and how did you get started in this ketogenic world and this metabolic health focus?
Yeah, so I work as an OBGYN, so I deliver babies and do surgery, but I have a personal story. I was an athlete. I went to college and played softball, and after medical school met my husband, and we started a family, had 3 children, and I was diagnosed with prediabetes, and I did have polycystic ovarian syndrome. We had difficulty getting pregnant with our first pregnancy and developed hypothyroidism. And I realized that in traditional medicine in the United States, we are not good at treating chronic disease like diabetes and obesity and metabolic disease. So I went back to training, did a fellowship in integrative medicine, and really started to fix my own health. So started to change my diet, eating more whole foods, and then eventually trying ketogenic diet to reverse my prediabetes. And I started to feel so much better. I had so much more energy and all of my problems kind of went away. So I started to look into using metabolic therapy as part of my medical practice, and I use it every single day for a variety of issues that women encounter. And I think that we could fix a lot of our current medical problems if we started to focus on what we eat and how we move and how we sleep and how we deal with stress in our everyday world.
That's amazing, and that's also what we do here in Neocer with our patients. And it's a new world for other people. And you know, here in Chile we have the same problems that you guys have in the US, like overweight, obesity, like the levels are going up and up. So one of the questions women have is what happens with their hormones, because you can read everywhere that keto or intermittent fasting is going to ruin your hormones. What's the truth behind it? What's your experience with different women that you've treated with different conditions? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so women are very different than men, and we have to think about it as humans, whether you're Chilean or American. We are a reproductive species. So our body has these different pathways, and it is trying to sense if this is a good time for reproduction. And that is what we eat, our sunlight exposure, our stress determines our hormone levels. And many women out there are wanting to balance their hormones. They want some special treatment that will balance the hormones, but really the hormones become balanced through our lifestyle. And it depends if women go through menstruation once they enter these years of fertility. It is basically a monthly cycle. So the first 2 weeks of the cycle is very estrogen dominant, so the estrogen hormone. And then after ovulation, we see a rise in the progesterone hormone. And then a pregnancy either occurs or it doesn't. So most months it does not occur. But because women are a reproductive species, we are very susceptible to changes in our environment. So our dietary influence, our stress, our sleep, and our movement can affect our ability to achieve pregnancy or not. And that's why our chronic medical problems actually cause a lot of infertility, really, around the world, the obesity and metabolic disease that we encounter. And although our diet doesn't particularly raise something like estrogen or progesterone directly, it does it through these nutrient sensing pathways. So if you have something like insulin resistance, it can start to change the hormonal production at the level of the ovary.
So what can we tell women when they start keto or maybe lowering carbs and they say, I didn't get my period this month? And what's the explanation? What does it change so much, especially the first 3 months, right?
So acute changes in our environment, dietary changes, stressful events, illness, something like COVID, for instance, sometimes the menstrual cycle will go away because the body is perceiving this stress, whether it's nutritional stress, or some sort of environmental stress. It's saying this is not a good time to achieve a pregnancy, so the menstrual cycle will sometimes stop. Usually after a couple of months, after we've repleted nutrients and we have enough calories, the body will usually start properly functioning. So with ketosis, with ketogenic diets, we want to make sure that women are getting enough calories and getting enough nutrients. When it comes to carbohydrates, if you have insulin resistance, going through a period of ketosis and ketogenic diet a lot of times will restore insulin sensitivity and normal glucose levels. So for patients with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, it can be a very easy intervention to restore menstruation, but it all depends on where the patient is starting from.
And the patients have to be patient, right?
Yes.
They have to wait for this. My point of view is like 3 to 6 months to just watch their period and just wait so their body will show them what it would look like after the changes in their nutrition and movement and all that. So when people say like ketogenic diets don't work because they change your period, and that's not really a bad thing. It's a normal thing if you're doing it the right way, of course.
Yeah, one thing sometimes when patients adopt a ketogenic diet is that we get an appetite suppressant effect. So you're not as hungry, which for most people who have obesity is a good thing to be able to control our hunger and our cravings. But sometimes patients will start to really underconsume, calories, or they're fasting for too long. And we have to remember these are all tools and they can all be overdone. And so, yes, you do have to be patient, although you can reverse insulin resistance actually pretty quickly and achieve normal glucose levels actually quite rapidly. The inflammation and the healing does take a lot longer than that.
And what do you think about OMAD, like one meal a day, una comida al día?
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of that for women in particular because long-term, they tend to undereat protein and they tend to undereat nutrients. I think women are different than men in that sense. I think that men can fast for longer periods of time and not see as much hormonal dysregulation, but I think it's important for women to know that it may take 2 to 3 meals. It could still be in a smaller window. So an easy way to start intermittent fasting is with eating, most people are eating 15 to 16 hours a day. So shortening that window to maybe 8 hours is a really good place to start. I think as you narrow that window to 2 hours, 4 hours, you risk under consuming an adequate amount of nutrition. So we just have to be aware that in women is a sign that there could be too much stress.
I totally agree with you. And I have another question about carb cycling. What do you think about this? Because some people are comfortable doing the same every single day. But is it a benefit for us as women to do carb cycling, just like our periods, our cycles?
Yeah, I think that in women, dietary variations can be important because long-term, ketosis could be perceived as stressful. Like if you are on the ketogenic diet for a long period of time and you lose your menstrual cycle, then that's a sign that you're not doing something correctly. With carb cycling, it depends. If you are a woman who is menstruating, in the first part of the menstrual cycle, when estrogen is high, we actually tend to have better insulin sensitivity. So this is a period of time where you could add maybe more just low carb diet, eating somewhere around 50 to 100 grams of carbs, or using carbohydrates strategically pre or post workout. Once we go through ovulation and we're in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, when progesterone is higher, there's much more blood sugar instability. Women tend to retain more fluid. They don't recover from exercise as easily. And so this is a time where you would want to actually take a few carbs away. And that will help with some of the symptoms that women can experience, like premenstrual depression and things like that. And so you have to know what's happening with your cycle to be able to manipulate it in that fashion. But certainly I think carbs could be used strategically in a woman who's menstruating. After menopause, once women have gone through menopause, the hormone levels are low all the time unless a woman is doing hormone replacement therapy. So in this situation, adding carbs back in large amounts could be detrimental because we don't have the estrogen that provides the insulin sensitivity.
Right. What would be the best advices for women like 50 or over? And what would be the best lifestyle that you've seen with your patients and with your knowledge for them?
Yeah, so when women go through the menopausal transition and they have loss of estrogen, we see major metabolic changes within the body. So in the brain, we see about a 30% reduction in energy in the brain with loss of estrogen. Women think their metabolism goes down after menopause, but it really doesn't go down because of the loss of estrogen per se. The loss of estrogen will cause muscle loss. Women, it's called sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and it's accelerated after menopause. And that is what causes a reduction in the metabolism. It's not because of the estrogen. So for menopausal women, controlling carbohydrates, lifting weights, not just cardiovascular exercise, but actually lifting weights, not only for the muscle, but for the bones, can help protect against the age-related bone and muscle loss, like osteoporosis that happens. Getting adequate sleep, and then other environmental things, so not using alcohol. We don't have as much resiliency when we go through menopause to those types of stressors, lack of sleep or using things like alcohol or dietary excursions. Some people eat very well Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends they go out and have large meals or lots of desserts. That actually is even harder to recover from when you're in menopause.
That's amazing advice. And another topic I wanted to ask you about was, we know that insulin resistance is associated with the polycystic ovarian syndrome, but we've seen many women that don't have the typical phenotype, who are thin. So you look at them, they don't have acne, but they find in their imaging test that they have the polycystic ovaries. So what are the causes of this? Do they have to do keto diet or go low carb anyways, or is there another cause that we have to look for?
So PCOS is a spectrum, of diseases that cause loss of the menstrual cycle, high levels of androgen hormones, so testosterone and DHEA, and then these ovaries that have cysts. Now the ovary's job is to make cysts. So PCOS ovaries look very different. They have lots of little tiny cysts. Most PCOS patients that we think of have obesity, they have hair growth, problems with acne, loss of the menstrual cycle. And that may just be caused by insulin resistance and poor lifestyle. Patients that are thinner or a normal body weight that have PCOS, there's probably more of a genetic predisposition to that phenotype, and it is insulin resistance at the level of the ovary. So sometimes they can pass a glucose tolerance test, but at the level of the ovary, the insulin signaling is not proper. It's not happening how it's supposed to, and so it drives up testosterone, which then gets converted into estrogen. It changes the hormones in the brain, and it causes loss of the menstrual cycle. In the studies, the ketogenic diet is very helpful at restoring normal menstruation in these patients. So I think it is a good modality to try, because these patients have higher rates of depression, higher rates of metabolic disease, higher rates of infertility, even though they have a normal body weight.
Perfect. So then low carb could still be a metabolic therapy for those groups of people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the ketogenic diet, is that it's used for weight loss.
Yeah.
There are lots of ways to lose weight, Mediterranean, vegan, carnivore, paleo. There's lots of ways to lose weight by just controlling caloric intake. Ketogenic therapy is very different. The ketones work as a cellular signaling molecule. They're very anti-inflammatory, and because PCOS patients have insulin resistance at the ovarian cell, it can be helpful for restoring some of that normal pathway.
Amazing. Food as medicine then.
Food as medicine.
Okay, let's talk about now your book. Here we have it. Aquí está su libro, Hard to Kill. Tell us a little bit about what is it about, what are you trying to do with your book? What's your goal with it?
Yeah, so as a physician that practices every day, we only have a small amount of time with our patients. So this book was really a project that meant a lot to me, to be able to empower women and men that you have so much control over your health. That even though you're born with genes that might predispose you to diabetes, or whatever it is, that's not your destiny. And in America and really around the world, we're dealing with so much metabolic disease. And I think a lot of it could be fixed without medicine. And so I really want to empower patients with that information. So the book really goes through what I consider to be the 5 pillars of health. So the first one is nutrition. So food, we eat it multiple times per day, every single day. So if you want to impact your health in a short amount of time, starting with nutrition is probably the most important thing that patients can do. And then the second pillar is how we move. So resistance training. Our bodies were designed to do physically difficult tasks. When we think about our ancestors, I mean, they had to hunt and kill their food, and they didn't have the luxury that we have today, driving cars and having a refrigerator in your kitchen. And so doing resistance training and exercise like sprinting, these are very good things from a metabolic perspective. Muscle is very protective when we think about longevity, not only to move, but muscle is a good way to dispose of glucose. And so if you want to eat carbohydrates, having a lot of muscle is very helpful for that. And then the third pillar is about sleep. Sleep is something that we don't think about when it comes to health, but when we sleep is when our body is making a lot of our hormones, it's clearing out the dead and damaged cells, and we know that sleep deprivation increases the risk for almost every disease. And then the fourth pillar is talking about stress. And not only, we think of stress as like our relationships and our work, but there are good stress. Stress is a good thing. Stress is what helps us build stronger bodies and stronger minds. And so this pillar focuses on things that you can add, like sauna therapy, cold therapy, red light therapy, but then also working on mental resilience. So, being able to overcome physical, mental, spiritual stress in our life. And then the fifth pillar is what I call environment. So the people, places, and things that we interact with. So the people in our life, the 5 people you surround yourself with basically determine a lot of how you live your life, the foods you eat, and those types of things. The places we live, so our environment, whether it's pollution, our water sources, do have an impact on our health. And then the last one is things. So I'm a mom, I have 3 daughters, and our world is full of chemicals and endocrine disruptors that can mess with our estrogen, so like our cosmetics and perfume and hair products that we use. So it's really an all-encompassing strategy to live a healthier life so that you can do whatever you want to do for as long as you're alive. The book really acknowledges that we may not live to be 100. Maybe we only get 40 years, maybe we get 50 or 70 or 80. I don't know. I don't have that information, but I just want people to feel empowered to live their best life in whatever amount of time they have.
I love it. I think it's going to be our Bible here in our set. This is what we teach to our patients too. And I think there's a big important topic, and I want to start telling you that you have been my inspiration for the last year at least. And really, you changed my mind about me as a woman, as a mother. Like, I didn't put me first. And since I've been following you on social media, then I met you in person in LA. And when I see you doing all these things, I think I can do it too. So we have so many patients that are women, and they feel like they can't do it because they are mothers, because they have to work, they are wives. So what can you tell them that can be an inspiration for them, that they can do it too? What would you say to our Chilean women and all of
I think women, especially moms, we are the caretakers of our family, we're leaders in our family, but we do everything for everybody else. And what you need to realize is that if you are not healthy, if you don't feel good, you don't have the best energy you can have, how can you take care of everybody else? So it really actually, my motto is pay yourself first. So although it seems very selfish, if you take care of yourself and you are the best version of yourself, you're a better mom, you're a better doctor, you're just a better human to everybody that you surround yourself with. So start with yourself, get yourself mentally healthy, physically healthy, metabolically healthy, And you will find that your family and your friends, they take notice of that. You know, we put like this energy out into the world, and Hard to Kill it's a mentality is really what it is. You know, it's not a program. It doesn't look the same for you as it does for me or anybody listening. We all have to kind of become our own expert, and we all have different DNA, and we all, you know, respond differently to different diets and things like that. So it's just about educating yourself and putting the best version of yourself out into the world.
I love it. In Spanish, what would be the name? Like, Hard to Kill will be like duro de matar.
I was going to say, you're going to tell me the translation, but we're working on getting it translated to Spanish, so that more people can, you know, gain value from this information.
Yeah, we need it. So we're going to help you, letting the world know that it's going to be in Spanish. Así que los quiero dejar invitados a conocer a la doctora Jaime Seeman. Yo me siento muy afortunada de estar al frente de ella, conversar con ella. Y aquí tienen su libro, quienes lo puedan leer en inglés y eventualmente lo tendremos en español. Y no olviden sus mensajes de empoderarse, de realmente aprender, ponerse como prioridad. No es egoísmo, es simplemente disfrutar tu vida al máximo. Y creo que nos llevamos muchísimas lecciones de hoy. So I want to thank you, Jaime, for being here, for giving us this inspiration to all women and all people, actually, that we can recover the power of our health. So if you want to say something to say goodbye to our viewers.
Yeah, I'm just honored to be here, Paulina, and, you know, it's amazing that we can spread these messages all across the world. You know, I live in one town in the middle of the United States, but to be able to, you know, touch people in South America and all over, it's just, it's really an honor.
Yeah,
so thank you.
It's our honor. So thank you, and gracias a todas las personas que vieron este video. Por favor, síganos en todas nuestras redes sociales de Neocer Chile, canal de YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Y esperamos que podamos compartir nueva información en nuestro canal y la puedan compartir con todos sus seres queridos. Lo que queremos es darles salud, que puedan tener su mejor versión, sentirse al máximo, no ser conformista, y eso depende de todos nosotros, de lo que aprendamos y lo que pongamos en práctica. Y para eso vamos a estar ahí para decirles el cómo. Así que nos vemos en un próximo video. Espero que hayas disfrutado de esta entrevista tanto como yo disfruté hacerla. Busca personas que te inspiren, busca personas que te sumen y que te muevan en lograr tus propósitos de salud. Gracias por estar aquí y nos vemos en el próximo episodio de Wellness Club. Gracias por escuchar el episodio de hoy. Estoy muy contenta de poder traerte conversaciones auténticas, invitados inspiradores y gran contenido. Comparte este podcast por tus redes sociales etiquetándome con @DRA Paulina Vega. Y recuerda, nada malo pasa cuando optimizamos nuestra salud y estilo de vida.